Caroline was a young woman with bright eyes, filled with energy and big dreams. She lived in a small village in the American Midwest, surrounded by rolling hills and endless fields stretching to the horizon. The village was peaceful but dull to Caroline, who yearned to leave behind the familiar cornfields and explore new lands. Since childhood, she had been captivated by stories of faraway places, majestic mountains, and vast oceans she only knew through books and movies. One day, "I'll leave this place," she often told herself, her eyes sparkling with determination. But life has its way of shaping one's destiny. Caroline met Tom, a kind and hard-working man who had devoted his life to his family's farm. Tom's love for Caroline was deep and sincere, and she couldn't resist the warmth he brought into her life. They married, and Caroline began a new life at Tom's small farm. Her days were simple but joyful, spent tending the garden, feeding the chickens, and helping Tom harvest crops. Still, Caroline's dream of exploring the world never faded. She often stood on the back porch, gazing at the distant sky, imagining the places she had never seen. Tom, though understanding of her longing, often reminded her of the peace and meaning found in their small-town life. "We have each other, and that's enough," Tom would say whenever Caroline shared her feelings. Deep down, Tom wished he could someday take her beyond the familiar fields. But one fateful day changed everything. It was a bright morning when Caroline and Tom decided to take their produce to the local market. On the way back, a large truck barreled through an unmarked intersection. Everything happened too quickly. Tom tried to swerve, but it was too late. The accident left Caroline with severe injuries, and after weeks in the hospital, the doctors delivered devastating news: she would never walk again. The words crushed Caroline's spirit, shattering the dreams she had cherished her whole life. The time following the accident was incredibly challenging. Caroline had to learn to live in a wheelchair, relying on others for even the simplest tasks. For someone so full of life and craving freedom, this was a prison sentence. She began to withdraw from her friends and even from Tom, who remained by her side with unwavering love. Caroline felt like a burden and hated herself for it. Tom never gave up. He spent his days working on the farm and his evenings caring for Caroline, encouraging her and helping her cope with her emotional pain. But he knew that what Caroline needed wasn't just physical support, it was a way to find meaning in her life again. One day, Tom laid a large world map on the kitchen table and said, "Caroline, we may not be able to go, but that doesn't mean we can't explore. Pick a place you want to learn about, and we'll read, watch, and discover it together." At first, Caroline refused. She felt it would only make her bitterness worse, reminding her of the places she could never visit. But Tom's patience eventually won her over. Slowly, they began spending their evenings learning about new places, from the Alps of Switzerland to the Amazon rainforest, and bustling cities like Tokyo or Paris. They traveled through books, documentaries, and even cooking traditional dishes from those regions. Caroline began to find joy in the small things. She realized that even if she couldn't step out into the world, she could bring the world to her. She started writing short stories based on the places she and Tom had visited in their imagination. She shared these with friends in the village, who were amazed at the vividness of her tales, as if she had truly been to those places. Gradually, Caroline reconnected with life. Though not in the way she had once dreamed, her life was now full of new meaning. She was no longer a woman bound by a wheelchair and tragedy but an inspiration. showing that even when life takes away big dreams, one can find happiness in small ones. When Caroline first returned home after the accident, Tom was her rock, the unshakable pillar of support she needed. He stood by her, encouraging her and tending to her every need without showing a hint of exhaustion. He believed that love was strong enough to overcome any hardship. But as time went on, life proved to be far more challenging than he had anticipated. The pressures of running the farm, supporting the household, and caring for Caroline began to weigh heavily on his shoulders. The love remained, but the exhaustion crept in, silently creating cracks neither of them could see. Tom never spoke of how he felt. Each day, he rose at dawn and worked tirelessly to keep the farm running. The cows needed tending, the fields needed irrigation, and the bills kept piling up. After long hours of labor, he returned home to Caroline, who waited in her wheelchair, needing his help with even the simplest tasks. Cooking, cleaning, and assisting her with daily routines slowly became overwhelming burdens. Tom had no time for himself, no space to breathe. He felt like he was drowning in an endless cycle. Gradually, Tom grew distant. He spoke less to Caroline, and when she tried to engage him in conversations about the places they explored through books and documentaries, he only nodded absent-mindedly. Deep down, Tom felt anger, but he didn't know who to blame. Was he angry at Caroline for her helplessness? Or at himself for not being strong enough to cope? These emotions festered, growing heavier with each passing day. One night, after a long and grueling day, Tom sat alone on the back porch, staring out into the dark fields. A disturbing thought crept into his mind, one he dared not admit even to himself. If she weren't here, maybe life would be easier. The thought horrified him, but it lingered, circling back again and again, like a venomous snake tightening its grip on his reason. The farm had a large, aggressive bull known for its unpredictable behavior. Even Tom was cautious around it. A dangerous idea began to form in his mind: he could use the bull to stage an accident. He told himself it was just a fleeting thought. But it wouldn't go away. Instead, it became more vivid, like a plan taking shape in the shadows of his mind. Tom started preparing instinctively. He left the bull's pen slightly ajar, ensuring it could escape easily. Each time he looked at Caroline, his heart twisted. In her eyes, he saw unconditional trust and love. It made him feel both guilty and resentful. Yet he found himself unable to stop the dark thoughts from consuming him. One afternoon, under the soft golden light of the setting sun, Tom wheeled Caroline out onto the porch, suggesting she enjoy some fresh air. He pushed her chair close to the bull's pen, where the aggressive animal stood not far away. His heart pounded as each step of his plan began to fall into place. But just as he was about to leave her there, Caroline called out to him. "Tom," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I know you're tired. I see it in your eyes, in the way you've been avoiding me lately. But you know what? I don't blame you. I just want to thank you for not giving up on me, even though I know I've taken so much from you." Her words hit Tom like a thunderbolt. He froze, feeling utterly exposed before his own conscience. He looked at Caroline, the woman he had once loved so deeply, now sitting there, fragile yet brimming with gratitude. In that moment, Tom realized how far he had strayed. The anger, the despair, and the suffocating sense of being trapped had turned him into someone he didn't recognize. Tom stepped back toward Caroline, kneeling beside her and wrapping her in a tight embrace. "I'm sorry," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I let the hardships blind me to what truly matters. I'll never let you feel alone again." That evening, Tom securely locked the bull's pen and decided to sell the animal. He knew he couldn't change their circumstances, but he could change how he faced them. From that day forward, Tom and Caroline began rebuilding their relationship, one step at a time. They were no longer just husband and wife but partners, learning to overcome life's challenges together. The soft afternoon sunlight bathed the farm in a golden glow, casting long shadows across the fields. Tom, wearing an unreadable expression, walked into the kitchen where Caroline sat in her familiar wheelchair. "It's such a beautiful day," he said, his voice strained but calm. "I thought we could go outside for a little while. I'll take you near the barn, and we can enjoy the fresh air and watch the sunset." Caroline smiled, grateful for Tom's gesture. Lately, he had been quieter and more withdrawn. But moments like this, when he showed warmth, made her feel reassured. "That sounds wonderful, Tom," she replied. "I've been wanting to get outside." Tom prepared everything and wheeled Caroline along the path leading to the barn. As they walked, Caroline talked about small things, the books she was reading, new recipes she wanted to try. Tom nodded absent-mindedly, his mind preoccupied with a plan he couldn't fully admit even to himself. They stopped near the barn, where a large brown bull with a notorious temper stood in its pen. The bull was known for its aggression and unpredictability, and even Tom was cautious around it. He opened the gate slightly, letting the bull step into the yard. It snorted, pawing at the ground, its massive head swinging as if challenging the world. "Wait here," Tom said, pushing Caroline's wheelchair closer to the barnyard. "I'll be back in a moment." He turned away, his heart pounding. In his mind, everything was falling into place. If the bull attacked, it could easily be explained as an accident. No one would suspect anything. As Tom began to walk away, Caroline sensed something was wrong. She looked up at the bull, feeling the tension in the air. The bull snorted again, lowering its head as if preparing to charge. But instead of panicking, Caroline met its gaze with calm determination. "Hello there, big guy," she said softly, her voice steady and kind. "There's no need to be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you." The bull paused, its large eyes fixed on her. It snorted again, but its movements slowed. Caroline continued speaking, her tone gentle and soothing. "You're here with me, aren't you? I'm not afraid of you. And you don't need to be afraid of me. We're just two creatures trying to get by in this world." From a distance, Tom watched in astonishment. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The bull, known for its aggressive behavior, seemed to be calming under Caroline's voice. It took a step forward, not with hostility but with curiosity. Lowering its massive head, it sniffed at Caroline's outstretched hand. Caroline remained still, letting the bull explore. After a moment, it let out a deep, low sound and stepped back, standing calmly in the yard. Tom felt a storm brewing inside him. He didn't know what he felt: amazement, anger, or shame. His plan had failed. But that wasn't what unsettled him most. What truly shook him was how Caroline, with her calm and kindness, had managed to connect with a creature he considered dangerous and uncontrollable. She had done something he never thought possible. Caroline turned to Tom. Her eyes filled with curiosity. Tom. Did you see that? It's not as scary as we thought. You just have to give it a chance to trust. Tom couldn't respond. He felt exposed. His dark intentions laid bare before himself. Slowly, he walked toward her, feeling drained of all strength. I'm sorry, he said. His voice choked with emotion. I don't know what I was thinking. I've just been so tired, and I let those feelings take control of me. Caroline reached out and placed her hand on his. She didn't ask questions. She understood that they were both carrying heavy burdens. We're both tired. Tom, she said gently. But we have each other. And as long as we have that, we can get through anything. The bull stood quietly in the yard, its dark coat glowing in the fading sunlight, like a living statue. In that moment, Tom realized that what he truly needed wasn't to unload his burdens but to learn how to share them. From that day forward, he vowed never to let his darker emotions consume him again. The evening light cast a soft, grayish glow over the sprawling fields as Jack, a neighbor who lived not far from Tom's farm, rode his horse down a familiar dirt path. He was heading home after a long day of work when his sharp eyes caught something unusual at Tom's barn. The infamous aggressive bull was loose in the yard. And Jack noticed Caroline, the wheelchair-bound woman, sitting dangerously close to the animal. The scene instantly unsettled him. Jack reined in his horse, moving closer to get a better view. He saw Tom standing a distance away from Caroline, his expression tense and conflicted. Something about Tom's demeanor and the way Caroline was left near the bull didn't sit right with Jack. His gut told him this was no ordinary situation. Tom. What's going on here? Jack shouted, his strong voice cutting through the tense silence. Tom flinched, startled by Jack's sudden presence. A flash of fear crossed his face, quickly replaced by anger. It's nothing, Jack. This is a family matter. It doesn't concern you, Tom replied, his defensive tone laced with irritation. Jack wasn't convinced. He dismounted and approached cautiously. I don't think so, Tom. That bull is dangerous. And Caroline is sitting right there. What are you trying to do? Tom didn't answer, avoiding Jack's piercing gaze. Caroline, noticing Jack's arrival, spoke up in a shaky but resolute voice. Jack. Thank you for stopping by. I think Tom might need help. Jack turned to Caroline, his expression firm with determination. Don't worry, Caroline. I won't let anything happen to you. Acting swiftly, Jack pulled out his phone and called the police, describing the situation with urgency. While waiting for their arrival, he positioned himself between Tom and Caroline, ensuring that no further harm could come to her. The bull, now calmer thanks to Caroline's soothing demeanor, stood silently in a corner of the yard, though its potential for danger was undeniable. The sound of police sirens soon broke the tension. Tom seemed to realize that it was all over. He made no attempt to flee or explain himself. Deep down, he knew his actions were indefensible. When the police arrived and questioned the situation, all evidence pointed to Tom deliberately endangering Caroline. He was handcuffed and taken away without protest. Sitting in her wheelchair, Caroline felt as if the world had momentarily stopped around her. For the first time since her accident, she felt truly safe, as though a heavy weight had been lifted from her chest. Jack approached her, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "Are you okay, Caroline?" he asked gently. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Jack. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." Jack offered a reassuring smile. "Don't worry. You're safe now." After the incident, paramedics checked Caroline and confirmed that she hadn't been physically harmed. However, the event left her with a whirlwind of emotions. She struggled to comprehend how the man she had once loved could have conceived such a dark plan. Yet, amidst her shock and anger, she couldn't help but feel pity for Tom. A man crushed under the weight of life's burdens and his own unchecked emotions. Jack, with his kind heart and quick action, became more than just a rescuer. He became a new companion in Caroline's journey to rebuild her life. He helped her move into temporary housing and connected her with local community services to ensure she would never face such danger again. Gradually, Caroline began to find hope again. Though the pain of Tom's betrayal lingered, she knew this was her chance to start fresh. She was no longer the helpless woman in a wheelchair waiting for others to take care of her. The strength she had shown in calming the bull reminded her that deep within, she still possessed immense resilience. With Jack's support and the community's kindness, Caroline embarked on a new chapter, confident that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. After everything she had been through, Caroline knew she couldn't let the tragedies of her past define the rest of her life. Instead of succumbing to despair, she decided to channel her energy into a greater purpose, building a shelter for abandoned animals. The idea came to her like a ray of light in the darkness, a goal that gave her life new meaning. The early days were far from easy. With limited financial resources and physical constraints, Caroline faced countless challenges. But she wasn't alone. Jack, the neighbor who had saved her, became her closest ally. He not only helped her plan but also rallied the villagers to support her cause. Caroline began sharing her vision with others, explaining that the shelter was not just about saving animals but also about creating a symbol of hope and healing. "We've all faced hard times," she said during a community gathering at the village church. "But if we can help these small, vulnerable creatures, we're also helping ourselves find faith in life again." Her words touched the hearts of everyone. One by one, people began contributing. Some donated money, others offered building materials, and many volunteered their time to help construct the shelter. Jack, with his experience working with animals, took charge of designing safe and comfortable spaces for the dogs, cats, and other creatures. Caroline, though confined to her wheelchair, worked tirelessly. She spent hours researching animal care, learning how to create a sustainable shelter, and reaching out to larger organizations for support. The letters she wrote, sharing her story and her vision for the shelter, caught the attention of animal welfare groups in nearby cities. Some organizations even provided additional resources, allowing her to purchase food, medicine, and essential supplies. After months of relentless effort, the village's first animal shelter was finally completed. It was a sprawling property with separate areas for dogs, cats, and other animals, clean kennels, safe play areas, and even a small, fully equipped veterinary clinic made the shelter a beacon of hope in the community. On the day of the shelter's opening, the entire village gathered to celebrate Caroline and her team of volunteers. People who once doubted that Caroline could overcome her past now looked at her with admiration. Jack stood beside her, proud to see his friend turn a simple idea into something extraordinary. "You did it, Caroline," Jack said, his voice full of admiration. Not just for the animals, but for yourself, and for all of us. Caroline smiled, her eyes glowing with joy and contentment. It wasn't just me, she replied. We did it. This community turned the impossible into reality. From that day on, the shelter became more than just a refuge for abandoned animals, it became a symbol of unity and compassion. Schools organized visits to teach children about caring for animals. Families looking for a new furry friend came to adopt. Volunteers from near and far visited, bringing stories and encouragement. Caroline also began writing a blog, sharing her journey and the lessons she learned from animals. Her story spread far beyond the village, inspiring others in ways she never imagined. She proved that even in the face of life's greatest challenges, kindness and love could triumph over adversity. One afternoon, Caroline sat in her wheelchair outside the shelter, watching dogs frolic on the grassy field and cats curl up on warm chairs. The sunlight bathed the peaceful scene in a golden glow. Jack sat beside her, sharing the moment of quiet reflection. Caroline, you've created something incredible, Jack said, breaking the silence. She turned to him, smiling. I think we all have. This isn't just my dream. It's everyone's dream. As she looked at the bustling shelter, Caroline felt an unshakable belief that even in the darkest times, love and compassion could prevail. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, she knew that a new chapter, full of hope and possibility, had begun.